Welcome into another edition of the James Boyd Podcast, our second full episode and our first after a game, Jim. Obviously, I am joined by my editor, Jim Ayello. We're excited about this episode because it's coming off of Anthony Richardson's best game of his NFL career and a dub out at MetLife Stadium. So, Jim, I'll start off by saying, what a game! What a game!
It was great because we obviously knew Anthony Richardson was going to be the story going into the game, like no doubt about it. Given everything he's been through, the 20 days of being benched, the two games, like his comeback, bad or good, was going to be the story no matter what. And then I think about halfway through the game, maybe a little bit more, you shot me a message on Slack being like, "Listen, I know Anthony Richardson's the story, and he's been good, but man, they are shooting themselves in the foot here. They're going to lose this game, and we're going to have to write about how good he was, despite the fact that they lost." And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, we obviously have to do that, but it's gonna stink because it's not gonna read that well. Like you're like, yeah, he played really well, but they lost, and like it just doesn't marry well in a story. And then the final two drives, Anthony Richardson kind of went to another level. Um, I think you had it in your story. It was 100. I think it was 137 yards of the 140 they accounted for on those two touchdown drives were Anthony Richardson, either passing or rushing. He was phenomenal. It was it was exactly the game I think Anthony Richardson probably dreamed of the night before going into the game, going, "This is I'm going to lead our team to victory, even if we're down, come from behind victory in the fourth quarter." Again, it was redemption. It was absolutely redemption for Anthony Richardson, and you got to kind of see that emotion from him. Not right away. He kind of he hit it, he tucked it away in the beginning, but you got it from him eventually.
Absolutely. So, to give everyone sort of the scene, after the game, we go down to the press room. It's this little tiny room in MetLife Stadium. And obviously, Shane Steichen comes in and talks first. The coach always talks before the QB. And Shane, we're not looking for Shane to give us emotion, right? Even after Anthony had one of the best games of his life, his best game in a Colts uniform, you have Shane Steichen giving us his usual lines like, yeah, we believe in him. He played good. We're moving on. I'm like, oh, come on, man. Give me a little something. But he could tell he was excited. So for Shane standards, he was thrilled. But then you get Anthony, who again is usually pretty expressive. It was almost like talking to a different person. And he gave all the company lines, he gave all the QB1 lines. He looked and talked and sounded like a quarterback. And I guess that's what you would want from him. I know he came to the game in a suit. That was to me a bit, intentional. And then in my mind, I'm just like, all right, I'm trying to get emotion out of this guy, and he's giving us all these lines. Like, oh, I didn't think anything really of it. I just want to go out there and play for my teammates. I'm just excited to be back, but like nothing really to kind of capture the magnitude of that game. And so afterwards in the locker room, I was walking by him, going to talk to someone else, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it. I went up to him and I was like, hey man, so I just got like one or two quick ones for you. I said, Anthony, I know you love this game. I know you love the game. So I was like, from that perspective, what does this mean, man? I said, you've been through a lot the last 2, 3 weeks. And he finally like kind of breaks through a little bit. And he's like, man, I'm trying to cry right now. He said, because Lord knows it's been a lot this week. It's been challenging. And he goes on to tell me about how, he had good people in his corner and, they helped him keep his head and not, just kind of dwell in his sorrow. And then he turned to Sam. He's like, this guy right here, Sam Ellinger has been in my corner since day one. He said he really helped me a ton. He said, I can't thank him enough. And he like hugged him and all this stuff. And I was like, wow. And so those are one of those moments as a reporter where you're like, okay, I got something here. I got something that's a bit unique, and it's not just what he gave us on the stand. It's not just this cookie cutter answers. It's real emotion. And so that became the scene in which I wrote the story, and why I'm sure those reading were a little bit surprised to see Sam Ellinger in there. And then they were kind of like, oh, wow, this is really cool. They have this bond. And so I talked to Sam afterwards, and he's like, yeah, well, Anthony probably gave you the details. I'm like, not really. I'm like, no, no, no. Like QB1, I can't really talk to him for 10 more minutes in the locker room after he's already talked. I'm like, you got to give me the details. And he kind of broke down how they've always had a good relationship. He said I think Sam is very self-aware, where he's like, I know I'm not the guy. I'm probably never going to be the guy, but I know how to prepare and to help someone maximize their opportunity. Because if you look at his, career, he's a 6th-round pick. He did start for the
Mm-hmm.
Colts for a few games a couple years ago, and he survived because he's been a great teammate. He's always been prepared, and he's been a great locker room guy. And every time you talk to a coach about him, he is never someone who hasn't put in the time. And so he said that he spends a lot of time with Anthony on Tuesdays, the players' off days. But he said more recently they've kind of come together and talked about their process and their system, as he put it. And he was telling me, the system is going to determine the amount of success that you have. And he was like, it's not as linear as you think. He said, it's not just binary. He said, when you just look at the games, I didn't put this in the story because I couldn't fit it all in there, but he was like, if you just look at the games and all you do is think about wins and losses, he was like, you're never really going to be able to withstand those things because you're not looking at whatever process you have. He said, if your process is good, if your system is good, he said, you can kind of live with the results of whatever comes because okay, I'm always evaluating, always doing what I think is best, and I'm not cutting any corners. And so the quote that really struck me from him that I put in my story was that, he broke it down to a level that I thought was very human. And he said, talking to Anthony about his system, he said, I just told him the systems and habits you create determine the man you're going to be, the father you're going to be, the husband you're going to be, and then ultimately the player you're going to be. We talked a lot about just building the right system to give you the best chance. I think that spoke to everything Anthony's kind of going through. Like, he's a new father. He is a fiance. He is a young quarterback. He does want to be better in all these areas. And so it was really cool to see Sam kind of step up in that way and kind of just elaborate on their relationship. And after I got done, Jim, talking to Sam, who again, he was giving some like great like life advice. I turned to Anthony, I was like, man, this dude needs to be my life coach too. And he's like, man, I'm telling you, he's a good one. He's a good one. And so they hugged and dapped it up. And then Sam, as I also put in the story, he was saying, I just want to see the best for him because he said he's been blessed uniquely, but he's in a unique situation. And I think that Sam kind of gave him that empathy that he needed when it felt like the world was kind of judging him for every little thing. And then, to a certain extent, kind of making stuff up along the way about who he is because the Colts weren't really clear about what was going on when he was benched.
Yeah, I mean, all I can like as you go through that, I think like I hope that this continues, and we're going to talk about like Anthony Richardson, and obviously you can't just live off of one game. He's got to make this consistent. But that's not just the games, like you said with Sam. It's got to be the approach every week. It's got to be the same amount of investment of time watching film and breaking down film and talking to offensive line coaches about protections and all the things that you need to do to be a successful NFL quarterback and not just survive like you had written last week on your superhero skills. So, yeah, all I could think during that is that thank God, I guess, for him that he's still so young and it's not too late to learn these things. Like
Right.
he can still process this information as a 22-year-old and take it and become great if that's going to be his outcome. It's still potential there for him to be that player. So, yeah, it's pretty great that the Colts have somebody like Sam Ellinger that they can rely on to help him do that. Obviously, I think Sam is the guy that you could maybe trust to be the guy that can help him walk him through that process. Whereas Joe, I'm not saying Joe wouldn't do that, but Joe is more the person that you can kind of lead by example. Like he is the veteran who's done it for 17 years. He's won a
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowl. Like you can watch him and kind of learn. So Richardson does have some role models in there, even if nobody in that room or in the NFL really can match him physically. He can still look at these guys and go through what they do mentally to get prepared. So yeah, I just got to say, to get back to the game, like it was just exciting to watch. I felt like this felt like I don't know, early last year when there were those exciting moments of
Yeah.
Richardson and everyone was like, "Oh my God, is this what this is? Like this is what we thought we were gonna watch?" Like it was fun just on a football watching level to watch Anthony Richardson perform like he did and go, "Okay, this is still there. This is still in the bag. Like this is still the potential." Again, I repeat myself 1,000 times now and through this podcast. He's got to stay consistent, but it was just nice, I think, and a relief to see for anybody that still thought Richardson had it, which I am among those people that thought it's still there, to see it, like to see it come out. And so I don't know how you felt about that. Again, like I'm not trying not to come at it as a Colts fan. It's more just like a football fan. Like it would have been so disappointing if Anthony Richardson wasn't as good as he could be because the skills, again, we've talked about 1,000 times, are outrageous, and I wouldn't want to see that talent wasted. So to me, it was kind of like this, we saw it, like it's there, and we could still see more of it coming. I don't know how you felt about it though.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that this was a game beyond just the redemptive narrative of it was before the benching, before all these other things, it was what the Colts probably envisioned
Hmm.
him performing like. And I think even without that last fourth quarter drive, you probably leave that game thinking, okay, the Colts have something here. They have a guy who looks like he could be the guy, for a long time. But that final drive, I think, is what a lot of the players alluded to. They were like, okay, we have a dude who can face the music, so to speak, during a game, face a lot of that pressure and go down and take us down there and give us that belief. And I think with experience and kind of stacking certain things, I know this was technically Anthony's second game-winning drive. It's very weird how they kind of rate these things, but he had one against
Yeah,
Miami
you can have a game
technically.
win. You can have a game-winning drive in like the second quarter if it ends up being the last score, kind of a thing. I think that's
Exactly.
how that
So,
works. So yeah,
but the
it's
way
weird.
I framed it in my story, this was his first game-winning touchdown drive. So this is where you got to get a touchdown. Field goal won't help you. He went down there and got it done, and I think in the variety in which he did it was pretty cool. Now, obviously, late they were passing a lot, but as we've talked about, it looked like the marriage between Shane and Anthony was better than it's ever been. Even just starting the game with the design QB run, I know like AR got stonewalled, didn't gain any yards, but it still was like, wow, oh my gosh, what is this? This is what we've been asking for. And again, I'm never going to say I'm smarter than a head coach. I don't know anything about every single coverage and look and play call. But I do know if you have a guy who can run a 4.4 and he's 250, you probably want to use that guy as a runner. And I thought that the Colts really leaned into that. Shane Steichen leaned more into that. And it got Anthony into a rhythm. And even Molly Cox said after the game, yeah, Anthony was brilliant on that final drive. He was great, near the goal line, running guys over. And as Molly Cox put it, giving Jalen Mills the Holy Ghost on the first touchdown run. But he was saying he felt that comfortable because he felt in a rhythm and he got his touches. And that's something Michael Pittman Jr. alluded to as well. He was like, when you're a skill position player, even at quarterback, when you touch the ball in every play, it's a little bit different when you're involved in every play and you're kind of getting into the game. He even talked about how, you know, getting touched up a little bit, getting hit or whatever gets you into the game a little bit and it kind of wakes you up. And so I think that that's an instance where Anthony was able to feel like he was a part of the game and not really forcing a bunch of stuff and kind of hoping that things would click. And so we talked about it off the pod, but you know, the whole can't stop Steph Curry from shooting threes reference that Shane Steichen said, like Steph Curry is what I call a wake up shooter. Like he can just wake up and shoot the three ball. Like it doesn't matter like what day, what arena, how cold it is, how warm it is in the arena. He can just flat out shoot the ball. He's the greatest shooter ever. Whereas there's certain guys who are rhythm shooters. Like I would say for a Pacers reference, Pascal Siakam is probably a rhythm shooter. He can knock down the three. He can be pretty good at it, but that's not his bread and butter. It's not like it's something that he's going to do just off the rip to start the game. Whereas the same can be said, I think, for Anthony. You see all those throws he made in the fourth quarter? I don't think those happen if he doesn't feel like he's in the game before that. Like he's not just a wake up pinpoint thrower, but he can be when he's in a rhythm. And so they gave him a rhythm, and I thought that you had some great, stats, some advanced stats, and really not even that advanced. You broke them down pretty
No,
well to me, which I'm sure you'll do to the listeners. But just kind of encapsulate what we saw and what we were able to verify with our own eyes.
just the start of the game, like you said, I want to go back to that because I thought that was so important. The design QB run. I tweeted this out after I think the first two drives that Anthony Richardson in the first two drives had one pure drop back pass. One. I was thrilled to see that. Like this should be quarterback design run. This should be Jonathan hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor. This should be play action passes, rollouts, boots, get him out of the pocket. Like this should be a I don't want to. It's kind of like a training wheels offense, a little bit. Like take it easy on him, dumb it down. Like let's make it easy on Anthony Richardson as he grows. That's okay to do. He is 22. He's young. He's raw. Let's give him as many easy layups, as we can. And layups don't have to mean short throws. Layups just mean one or two reads or a design quarterback run. And so some of the stats you're referring to, he had his highest design run rate in a game in his career. It was right about 24% in a game that he finished. The Steelers game is going to be higher, but he didn't finish that game. So more play action passes than he's ever had in a game that he has finished. Again, Shane Steichen was leaning into the things that make life easier for quarterbacks. And again, I don't want to go too. I don't want. We don't have to go back through history here and be like, why wasn't he doing this before? But it does make you think, why wasn't he doing this before? I kind of think maybe he got like all of us in some way and saw like the promise of Anthony Richardson from last year and was like, I can't wait to deploy my new toy in all these new ways. And it was like too soon, Shane, too soon.
Right,
Like
right.
just back up, let him keep doing the things he's doing, and then in the games where you need him to be a pure drop back passer, like to be honest with you, he did a bunch of pure drop back passing in those final two drives when they needed him to be a passer, and it was as good as you could ever hope for in those situations. But again, just like you said, getting him into a rhythm. And I will say, staying committed to the running game. Jonathan Taylor did not have a good game running the ball. He did not have an efficient game running the ball. And yet, he got the ball 24 times. That is fine. Again, assuming the game is close. I think Shane Steichen told you guys, I think you asked the question,
Yeah.
like, you stayed committed to it in the second half. And he's like, yeah, we always want to do that. We don't want to forget about the run. Sometimes the game gets away from you and you have to throw. True. But they've been in so many one score games this year
Yeah.
and have gotten away from the run from Jonathan Taylor. And even if it's not working, that's okay. I mean, again, you don't want to get stonewalled, but he was getting 2, 3 yards. Not efficient, but it does set up some easier down and distances for Anthony Richardson and also keeps defenses a little bit honest, knowing they're going to have to guard against Taylor, against Richardson running, and then against the play action, which it sets up. So I thought Shane, again, I didn't go through every game that he has called, but I thought it was in recent memory, one of the best games Shane has called. Like I said, that I can recall. He was on it, man. He was putting Anthony Richardson in a chance to succeed from the beginning to the end. And like you said, it was no coincidence in those final two drives that Richardson was on top of his stuff because he was feeling confident. And running guys over, going to the end zone on people worried about injuries, like forget that, man. Like again, injuries, if it happens, it sucks and it happens. But you got to let him play. Like you got to let him get confidence and you got to let him play. And so I thought Steichen did a hell of a job doing that. And we'll get into the Lions later. But that's the quarterback you need against the Lions. Again, he's not. They're not going to probably beat the Lions. They might not even finish within one score. But you need Richardson to be that confident dude against like a legit. If you see that confident dude for 4 quarters against the Lions, even if they don't win, that's a huge sign of things to come.
Well, one quick follow up to your point about him near the goal line and how he, ran over Jalen Mills, ran over DJ Reed. I was listening to Cam Newton talk about Anthony when the tap out happened, all that stuff kind of blew up. Cam was saying, when I ran, I was the hammer, not the nail. And I think that the same can be said for Anthony. Now, you don't want him lowering his shoulder on every single run, but in the gotta have situations where you're trying to go score, he does need to just be the hammer. And I think when you look at the times he's been hurt throughout his career on runs, it's when he's like kind of waiting to be hit or unsure of how he wants to end the run. I think of the one even earlier this year against Pittsburgh where he's running, could have slid, could have lowered his shoulder, didn't do either, and then kind of just waited for somebody to hit him, and it cost him, 2 weeks with the oblique injury. Whereas against the Jets, I felt like when he saw the goal line, I think that helps. When you see the goal line and you're trying to score, every player is going to be like, I'm getting in. And you saw him produce the physicality that really endears him to his teammates. I know,
Yep.
Jonathan Taylor, I asked him about it. He was like, man, you don't love to see it, but you kind of love to see it. It's basically what he said. Like, you don't love to see it, but he's built for it. And then I asked Zaire and EJ about it. And EJ was giving him some crap for not running over a guy that's bigger. And it's like, all right, EJ, relax, relax. But he was even saying, he said that in a joking manner, just so everyone can calm down. But he and Zaire were like, when he does things like that, it just injects even more energy into our team. And Zaire, true Philly guy, he broke it down where he's like, it shows everybody what type of time we on. And I was like, there you go. And so he was like, if Anthony's going to play that hard, it sends a message to the rest of the team like, oh, we all got to go play that hard. And
Mm-hmm.
again, was it a perfect performance? No. Like Anthony, actually, the first fumble that he had, the strip sack early in the third quarter where the Jets retook the lead right after on a Brees Hall touchdown, that was more a result of Dalton Tucker kind of just getting manhandled. He got pushed back into Anthony's lap. Anthony fumbles. They recover. But again, it's turnover, not a
Yep.
great sequence. And also, he had like the fumbled snap where he lost some more yards. Where, like, again, it wasn't a great performance. I do think that's one thing that Anthony has to kind of clean up this year is like the fumbled snaps. He's had 3 or 4 where it's like, all right, you got to make sure that you get the ball in your hands before you make a move. But they found a way. And the biggest reason why they found that way was because the quarterback looked like a dude. And that was pretty special. And again, I asked him after the game, I was like, hey, man, like you had your first, you know, comeback and first real moment. And he was saying, yeah, it's incredible because I did it, and you're standing across from a guy who's done it so many times in Aaron Rodgers. And so, special moment. But the other thing I wanted to bring up because um, I feel like Josh Downs could never let us forget him because he plays so well. What do you think of just what he's done, no matter the quarterback, no matter the time of the game, when you need yards, it seems like he's that dude. And I get it. And
First downs, baby. First
Michael,
downs.
there you go. I mean, that should be his name, seriously. And I will say, Michael Pittman Jr., he was saying he wishes he had that one right before the half back as far as across the middle. But even he didn't look as compromised as he did in weeks past. But we all knew by the end of that game who was the star receiver, who was wide receiver one for that game, who really has been wide receiver one this season. It's Josh Downs.
Preaching to the choir. As you know,
This is true.
I've been a I've been a Downs guy from the
He
beginning.
has. You have.
Listen. He is as nuanced and detailed as a receiver, a young receiver that I have seen, at least in Indianapolis and a lot of other teams I've watched in a long time. He is, if he had just a little bit more size, that dude's a first round pick. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Like, he is, I think that's the only reason he didn't get taken in the first round because you see he's battled some injuries, but man, he's the go-to guy. He is the go-to guy in this offense. Which is perfect because a lot of those little quick play action pop passes over the middle, that's going to be Josh Downs. And Pittman can do them too. And honestly, they've got Pierce and A.D. Mitchell rolling on the outside. And Pierce has done some of those deep digs and deep comebacks. He's got those, going, and obviously the one down the sideline. But I will say, in general, you were talking about A.D. Mitchell recently. I know we're focusing on Downs, but the completeness of this Colts receiver room now, I'm just impressed. Like, it almost makes me think Pittman should take a couple of weeks just to try to see if he can get the back right. Because, and again, I don't think the back injuries, I think anybody knows, like, those just need a lot of time to heal up.
Yeah, he ain't
it's
gonna
hard
be
to
right
get those
till
right.
after the season's over.
That's it. So I guess you might as well keep playing if you're not going to make it worse. But the Colts are in a good spot at receiver, which again I can't remember saying or thinking. And usually you're always like they could use one more. But like right now, I really like the way A.D. Mitchell's coming on. I really like the way what Pierce's role has become. I like, obviously if Pittman can get back to being what Pittman was and healthy. But yes, back to your point, Downs is the dude. Like if they need somebody to find a soft spot in the zone to get a first down, it's going to be Josh Downs. If they need somebody to do a little shake route, to get 5 yards against man coverage, it's going to be Josh Downs. Like that play. I mean, that's a Shane Steichen special, I think. But that play where they had him line up in the backfield and Richardson switched Taylor and Downs so he could run that little Texas route for the touchdown. I mean, they had him on that slot corner. Oh, what a gorgeous
funny story
play call.
On this play. He was
Give it to
saying
me.
that, like, I guess they initially lined up wrong or something like that. So he's yelling at them like, we got to switch because he was like, they're not going to mess up my touchdown. So he went and got it done, and obviously it worked out well. But he was just saying how, like, he was very aware that he was the first option on that look, and they needed to line up better to make sure he could, go out there and just beat the guy on the inside.
God bless Jonathan Taylor. He does a lot of things well, but a little Texas route out of the backfield is not going to be what Jonathan Taylor, and catching the ball that, with the heat that Richardson puts on it. Like you saw the Pittman pass. I mean, hit him in the face because he threw it with so much heat down the field. Like he's not. Anthony Richardson does not throw the most catchable pass in the NFL. It is tough. You got to really hang in there and get your hands out there. And Josh Downs is one of those dudes. So it was the right read to throw to Josh Downs on that Texas route, man.
To your point about you got to kind of just make the catch, even if it isn't the best, most perfect ball. Perfect example was that first drive where they throw it deep and Josh lays out for that catch. And I think that's even a huge moment where you drop that one, you go off the field, you got nothing going. Anthony's not in the rhythm.
Call.
Your offense not in the rhythm. But Josh helped his QB out. And Pittman said even on the one where he dropped it right before the half, he was saying that he just gets his head around faster. He was like, it wasn't that I wasn't expecting it. He said, I probably just didn't expect it that fast. And so,
you could tell it hit him in the face. Like,
because he was like, I got my hands up. And he's like, I'm like, wow, this thing's already coming. So again, you look at the performance by the receivers. And again, Pittman, he stepped up. He had some huge catches late, obviously, to move the ball and get down the field. But, being greedy, I guess you can look and say, hey, well, here's a few ways you can kind of improve. And Anthony even admitted himself there were some throws that he wishes he had back. But the one to Mo Alley Cox,
Yeah.
On the 2 point conversion, he was saying, he's like, yeah, I really want to, like, kind of put us ahead for good to make sure we couldn't lose on a field goal. But again, we're nitpicking because we're talking about a 22-year-old who put together the best performance of his life. He had over 300 yards of total offense, 3 total touchdowns, career highs when it came to completion percentage in the game that he actually finished, total yards. Third time he's had 3 combined touchdowns in a game. He was brilliant on third down late, and just looked like a guy who can go out there and win you a game. And I think that's important too. I'll go back to Chris Ballard saying this, I can't remember what exact press conference, but he was like, when you walk out there, if you have a guy who changes the field and changes the tenor of the game before he even plays. He was like, he knew when you're walking out, obviously with Peyton Manning years ago, when he had Andrew Luck, and obviously I know it wasn't a long time here, but when Andrew Luck walked out there, you knew, all right, we got a chance with this guy, no matter what's going on. And so that's the feeling that you hope to get consistently with Anthony, and it just instills confidence in you. And like I said, the way he finished the game was pretty fun. And then seeing the emotion afterwards, where seriously, Jim, like, you could tell his voice was quivering a little bit. He's like, I don't want to be the guy that cries, because no crying in football,
Yeah.
I guess. But
Yeah, no crying, no tapping out. I just want to, yeah,
yeah,
you get those things,
you
right?
can
Yeah.
tell though, like he really cares. And I think that's where I kind of hit him and able to connect a little bit. Is like, I know you want to be serious and you have to be, but I also know there's still that kid in you who loves this game. And one
Yeah.
quick funny thing, Jim. So after he scores his first touchdown, he gets up, does this little dance where he's wobbling his head, and I'm in the press box with Stephen Holder sitting next to me, formerly of The Athletic, now with ESPN. And he's like, I was like, I wonder what that kind of dance it is. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's TikTok. And I haven't seen the dance on TikTok, but I was like, anytime I don't know what it is, I'm like, it's probably TikTok. Remember, Anthony's 22. So we're going to locker room after the game.
You're getting
And
old, James.
yeah, I know. After, but look, I'm still young enough to know because right after the game, we go in the locker room after Anthony gave his press conference speech or whatever, or quotes. And Holder walks by and he's like, hey man, like that touchdown dance, like, what was going on? Like we were talking about it, like what was it? And he's like, oh, it's TikTok, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, see, I told you. And so I felt like I was still young enough. I was like the old guy with the skateboard, walking in saying, hey kids, that was me. But then Holder was completely like in the dark because he was like, oh yeah, like this is like my daughter and stuff, people doing stuff like that. So it was funny to
Barely,
connect with Anthony.
barely young enough, I'll say. Because if you don't know it's from TikTok, you're right on the cliff, man. If you,
Look,
like I said,
I
it's
was
a
just like, hey,
guess.
it's got to be TikTok because I'm like, if it's anything else, I've never seen it. It's not like the electric slide or something like that. So
That would
it
have
was
been
funny.
listen. I like the electric slide. It's a good dance, especially a guy with his athleticism. You can pull that thing off. I kind of want to see the spin spike again. I don't. When's he gonna pull that back out?
I don't know. I guess it's it's like the LeBron silencer, the Steph Curry night. You can't like really do
You can't do
it.
it all. Okay,
Yeah, can't do it all the
okay,
time. But I will say, after he ran over Jalen Mills, the spike would have been very
yeah.
welcome.
I,
After that, so
the
like I said,
360 spike is pretty cool. I would like to see that. But
that's his
all
thing.
right.
That's his thing.
By the way, before we move on to defense, you have to allow me. And I know I've talked to you on the phone about it yesterday. I talked to you about it on the podcast before. You got to allow me just to nitpick just a little bit, just a
Go for it.
little tiny thing. I'd like to after Anthony Richardson's
Oh
best
yes,
game.
yes, go for it.
For the love of God, man, scramble. Just once. Just scramble. Like he had none against the Jets, and he was awesome. But I'm looking at guys like Bo Nix, who's having a great rookie year. I'm looking at Justin Herbert, who's having a resurgent year as a quarterback. Looking at Joe Burrow, who's dicing up defenses, but also is looking at it every once in a while, drops back. It's like, oh, you're only rushing four? Bam, right up the middle for 15 yards. Guess who should do that and can do that? If Anthony Richardson, again, only 10 incompletions. We should be celebrating that, and we are on this podcast. However, if you want to eliminate a few more of those incompletions and just take off for a few yards, I would encourage it. Again, I'm not saying go run into a linebacker or go run into a safety or anything like that. I'm saying scramble for 6 yards, 12 yards, get out of bounds. Watch what guys like Patrick Mahomes do and Herbert. We saw him the other day. Like there are the quarterback run game, the design run game. And again, as excited as we all were to see it yesterday, or I mean, I'm sorry, on Sunday, he had 10 runs for 32 yards. Not exactly the most efficient running. Again, they should keep doing it because it gets them in the game and I love it and it's great. They should definitely keep doing it. However, NFL defenses are getting better at guarding against quarterback design runs. All these guys saw it in college. These defensive coordinators now have seen it in the NFL for years now. They are getting better at defending it. What is still hard to defend, what is still just like takes the wind out of the sails of a defense is on 3rd and 8 when they have everything covered perfectly and you scramble for 9 yards. Patrick Mahomes is the king of this. When they're 3rd and 11, he scrambles for 12. 3rd and 6, he scrambles for 7. He is the
Was it Josh
best at it.
Allen this past week where they had I want to say cover zero blitz or something like that, where he just took off and
Yep.
ended the game against the Chiefs by
Yeah.
running to the end zone. Like they had
Fourth and
everyone accounted
two,
for, and he was gone.
scramble. Exactly. Like again, you want to beat a guy like Steve Spagnuolo, who is a defensive mastermind. Scramble. Like again, it's. I'm not saying do it 15 times. I'm saying add it to your repertoire because he doesn't scramble that much. He honestly doesn't. Richardson is not a big scrambler. He likes to stay in the pocket. He likes to throw the ball. Fine. Like most of the time, I'm good with it. And most of the time, again, games like Sunday, he was accurate. The guys were open. It was the right time to unleash it. I totally agree. But against Detroit, you're going to need some of those plays. You're going to need some of those big, unscripted plays. And I would advise just a couple more scrambles. Like look downfield, check one, check two, not open, go. It's part of the thing that's made Jaden Daniels so effective this year. I know he's doing a little bit less now because he's hurt, even though Dan Quinn denies it. Whatever. But it's just another one of those easy buttons. We talked about the easy buttons, right? The play actions, the QB designed runs. The scrambles are another one of those easy buttons. Pick up free yards when defenses have what you have covered. And again, I know defenses are aware that he can scramble, so they're probably taking some of that away. I'm not saying do it 8, 9 times a game. 3, 4, 5 more times though per game. It's just add another element to this Colts offense that, and obviously Richardson is capable of.
Oh,
There, end of
absolutely.
rant.
There you go. And end of rant. So now we will pivot over to the defense, which got a little spooky there late. But here's my hot take that I know people will take offense to a little bit. Like, no, they gave the most points this season to the Jets, and they almost blew the game. They finally got rewarded for actually like stepping up for a good portion of the game. I feel like
Yeah.
these last few weeks they were doing the heavy lifting and they got nothing to show for it. Whereas, yes, they had to be bailed out a little bit against the Jets, and it felt like another one of those like, oh my gosh, here come the Colts doing the Colts thing and blowing a lead, and the defense giving up a huge play. They did just enough. They did a lot early. I mean, the first 5 drives, the Jets had 27 total yards, 0 first downs. And then the final couple of drives, they held the Jets to a field goal. And then they got the stop, obviously, with 46 seconds left, which I talked to Shane Steichen about. I was like, did you go too early? And he kind of grinned like, maybe I did. I'm like, yes, you did. Because I was like, you do know. I get it. Aaron Rodgers, he's older now. He's not moving the same. He did look like a totally different quarterback than what I grew up watching.
Yeah.
However, we all know he is the Hail Mary King. So I was like, you're playing with
Yeah.
fire here, man.
Still
Like,
got that.
yeah, I'm like, if he is the king of that play. And so they got out of there with the win defensively. Quiddy Pay was saying that, he knew that Rodgers was escaping to the B gap the entire game and then was able to retrace his steps a little bit and kind of get back to him on that final play to end it. And I know Laiatu Latu was saying he had a sack on Aaron Rodgers in the first quarter. He was excited about that. He was saying it's, kind of like a dream come true scenario for the pass rusher who has 3 sacks on the season now. But what did you think of the defensive performance? Both, I guess, good and bad, Jim.
I can't decide. You started this, your little hot take, and I was like, I don't know what side I'm going to come down on this. Should I support him or should I come at him the other direction? So I hear what you're saying. I think I'm going to support you. I think that's what I'm going to come down on. And again, this really could go either way because again, giving up 27 points to the Jets, who haven't scored 27 points this year, is not great. Like end of this, like that could just be the end of my argument. 27 points to the Jets is not great, and I know you alluded to it. However, in support of what you're saying, the Jets got real lucky, man. Like they had very few opportunities in NFL games. You get a certain amount of opportunities to take advantage of, and most of the time, teams take advantage of half, whatever, or something like that. They had so few opportunities. Colt defense gave them so few opportunities, and the ones they got, they capitalized on. And
Yeah.
so it was, they had the short field, they got the touchdown. They had, but like they had 2 short fields and they scored. I mean, 4 of 13 on third downs. Like again, you're not scoring 27 points when you're 4 of 13 on third downs and 0 of 1 on fourth down. They only threw for 162 yards. They didn't even rush for 100 yards. Like defensively, the Colts were good by if you just kind of zoom out and look at where the stats are and say like, did they perform and limit this team? They did. They did. They just got a little unlucky on the Jets being able to capitalize specifically on a couple of opportunities. So I will side with you on this one and say
Well,
that
I'm always right, so you're feel free to be right. You know what I'm saying?
it's your podcast, so ultimately I have to, right? No, it was close. they were so good in the first half. I thought that they were just going to bury the Jets like completely and suck the life out of MetLife. And then obviously that Breece Hall touchdown happens and they get a little life and energy back in them. The fumble obviously is what leads to
Yeah,
this.
I mean, it was
So
crazy. It went from being they were up 13-0, the Colts, to down 14-13. I'm like, what the heck happened?
and again, like that offense showed no life, and then all of a sudden, like you said, they scored twice, taking advantage of two opportunities that were, yeah. Again, it just it felt like when they needed to roll like snake eyes, they just did twice in a row, and it was like, oh, here we go, and then they scored. So yeah, I tend to lean with you. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. That said, here's the other reason I will say I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt because I know in 5 days
Oof.
we're not going to be able to give them the benefit of the doubt. Like we're gonna the Colts defense is gonna listen, man. I don't know if we're into the Lions part of this podcast yet, but woo, that is a buzzsaw team right now, and I don't know if any defense is stopping it, and this Colts defense certainly isn't good enough to stop them. If they do, my goodness. But we will hand them all the flowers that they deserve. But I think we should be nice to the Colts defense right now because it's gonna be rough on Sunday.
Fair enough. So just before we pivot to the Detroit game and kind of look
Okay.
ahead a little bit, the one thing I'll kind of put a button on for this performance, this game, and really moving ahead as well, is a question you posed to me. Can they do it again? And they being Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen. This cannot be the peak of your season. We can't look back and say, oh, well, Anthony was good in that week 11 game. You want to see some more momentum and some more
Yep.
progress between both player and head coach moving forward. And that's the challenge. I know the Detroit game is a huge one on the schedule. And obviously, they've been a juggernaut in the NFL, arguably the best team in the NFL right now. However, once you get past them, every other game on the docket, I think, is a winnable game. And
100%.
to any Colts players I'm gonna be listening to this, yes, the Detroit game is also a winnable game. I'm just looking at likelihood and things like that.
Yes, odds
Um,
are lowest against
there
Detroit.
you go. But you're facing teams where I think you should come in favored to beat them. I mean, obviously the Broncos might be you might be coming not favored because you're on the road and things like that. But some of these other teams, I
Yeah.
mean, you got the Giants who have Daniel Jones as QB3 now, and then you also have the Jaguars who just got 56 put on them, or 52. I'm sorry, 52-6 loss to the Detroit Lions put on them. And so again, this team is still in the thick of it. Last time I checked, they were in like eighth place. You know, top seven get in. You got a
Yep.
chance to play for something, and you have to be able to, whether you get in or not, look at this season and say, okay, Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen gave us hope for the future, and really, I think beyond that, it's the ability to put to bed the question of who's going to be the guy next year, because as great as Anthony played this past Sunday, I don't know if that's enough to just completely dismiss the idea. Like if he comes out and he regresses over the last 6-7 weeks of the season, is he still the guy? For sure next year. I mean, obviously he'd be
For
the
sure.
the main candidate, but just being real, it would obviously smooth over a lot of things for Anthony's confidence, Shane's confidence, the state of the team, the direction going forward, like all of the stuff they've been through this year, all the mess, the benching to the reinsertion as the top quarterback to the tap out, all these things we put to bed if he plays better down the stretch. Now, will it be smooth ride all around? No, there's gonna be ups and downs. Anthony's gonna have some players where you'll probably be looking like, what the heck just happened? But it needs to be more of the upside, I think, of the roller coaster than it's been as of late. So that's a big thing. Like, can you do it again? Now, obviously, if you do it against the Detroit Lions, oh,
Yeah.
that changes everything. The entire NFL world is talking about you and your team if you're able to get it done, Jim. But what do you think of just this team, the Lions, that is? Because I mean, the last 3 years, I remember watching them deny the Green Bay Packers a playoff berth a couple years ago, and I
Yep.
was thinking, oh wow, that's a fun team. And now I'm like, dear God, they beat teams like they're a directional school in week 1 or week 0 of the college football season.
I, I was watching like what did Alabama just pound Mercer the other day?
Yeah.
Like on Saturday, I was like that was similar to what we just watched.
Yes.
So the Colts are in trouble. They are one of the worst run defenses in the NFL by statistically right now. They're fifth worst, so 28th against the run. They're giving up 5.6 yards a carry. Anyone who's watched the Detroit Lions knows that that's what they want to do. They want to run you over and punch you in the mouth repeatedly. And then once you finally start dedicating like 9 guys to stopping the run, that's what Jared Goff just dices you up with their incredible weapons they have with Amon-Ra St. Brown, an emerging Jamison Williams. Maybe Sam Laporta is back at tight end this week for them. They're as balanced and as scary of an offense as I've seen in a long, long time. I mean, they're the offensive juggernaut of the NFL this year, and it's not particularly close. At least, I guess the Ravens are, maybe I shouldn't say it's not particular. The Ravens are up there. I know they had a rough game, but statistically they're up there. So I guess I'll put the Ravens in that category. But yeah, man, I am not expecting the Colts to win this game. I think if they keep it to one score, that would be, again, if they lose by 1-8, that would feel like maybe a small victory. I know there are no, you know, those, I lost the word.
Moral victory.
Moral victories in the NFL. Thank you. But I do think if they keep it to 1-8 points, that's probably where you'd want to come out. Here's what I want to see from Anthony Richardson in the offense. The defense is good for the Lions. It's very good. It's probably a top 10 unit. I just want to see the process be right. I'm going to do that to you because I know you hate it so much. The process. I'm going to give you
What does
Shane
that
Steichen's
mean?
process.
What does that mean? Oh my gosh. When Shane finally explained it, I was like, oh my goodness, the heavens have opened up. Is the rapture coming? What is going on?
I want to
Seriously.
see more design runs, more play action passes, more making life easier for Anthony Richardson, a dedication to the run game and Jonathan Taylor, even if you're down by 2 scores in the third quarter. I want to see all of that from this Colts offense. And then I will continue to believe that they have the right intentions or the right things in mind going forward with Anthony Richardson. If the process is there, if the process is right, it might not lead to a win, but at least I'll know that they have the right things in mind going forward because that process we just saw can beat a team like the Jets, which is not a great team, but that process can also beat some of the bad teams coming down the pike and keep them in the playoff hunt. That Denver game is Denver game is going to be huge because if they lose to Detroit, and then they end up beating New England, they'll be right in the wild card hunt with that last game and with a chance to take on Denver, who is the last wild card team. It could be a monster game, and if coming out of the bye week is great, they'll have 2 weeks to prepare for it against Denver. But it's a huge game. Not to look past the Lions, but I'm in my head I'm counting as an L. But I'm looking at the NFL projection model that we have here at the Athletic from Austin Mock. They have a 25% chance of making the playoffs. It's pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. And if they get more games like that at Anthony Richardson, those numbers are only going to go up.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the simplest way to keep yourself in a game like this against the Lions is to generate some turnovers. Obviously,
Yep,
we saw Houston do that with the 5 interceptions on Jared Goff. I don't expect
great
him to
call.
be that bad or, that weird. Again, that game was so weird. It seemed like every time I looked up, there was somebody picking the ball off. But that's the one thing that the defense didn't do against the Jets was turn them over and kind of give yourself and give Anthony some shorter field and some advantages there. So if they can be opportunistic, if they can pick off Jared Goff, if they can force a fumble, special teams play, whatever, you give yourself a chance. And then also, I think that, I didn't give him a lot of love on this podcast, which I will do right now, but Matt Gay, he looked like
Yeah,
the kicker that they paid a ton of money. And he was 3 for 3 on 40-plus-yard field goals. Obviously, the 56-yarder ended up being a huge play in the game, a game where you win by 1 point. A 56-yard field goal is huge. And so, again, you have some players who have gained confidence. And I guarantee when I talk to guys like Zaire and Buckner and, Kenny Moore, they're all looking forward to this challenge. And Michael Pittman Jr. had a funny quote yesterday, uh, Jim, where he's talking about his former college teammate, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And he's like, oh,
okay.
yeah, we'll probably
Oh
be talking.
yeah,
He's like, yeah, we'll probably be talking some trash a little bit. He was like, you know what? Maybe not. He was like, because I don't really want to talk trash to him. He was like, he might get, a little charged up. He said, when he gets going, he's really, really, really good. And so he was like, you can kind of see the light bulb go off in his head, like, wait a second, I'm not going to be covering this guy. So I probably should keep my mouth shut and not,
yeah.
instigate.
If I'm Kenny Moore, I'm like, shut the hell up, man. Like
Yeah.
I got to
Yeah.
guard him in the slot all game. Don't antagonize Amon Ra. Like, come on.
Exactly. So, and I think the way that Detroit is built, they're like a force multiplier in every position. They just hit you in so many different ways. You got JMO as a receiver. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have obviously your backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery, and you have Jared Goff, who's probably the most efficient quarterback in the league when it comes to completions and things like that. So it should be a fun game either way. I think that, in all seriousness, it's levels to this. You kind of see, okay, if we knock them off, you know, what a win. But if you don't knock them off, it's like, okay, here's where we got to get to compete with
Yep.
the big boys. And similar to Detroit, like they weren't this team 4 years ago, but they kind of laid out this blueprint. They built the right thing, and they got some great athletes and great players with football characters, they say. But that I think is kind of the blueprint that a lot of teams would hope to follow, where they get some
Yep.
violent, great athletes playing the game and playing it at a high level. And then with the coach, that I don't think anybody is like a Dan Campbell hater. I feel like if you are, it's like a character flaw.
Yeah.
Like I don't, I don't know,
Who
I
hates
don't
Dan Campbell?
like. I
Yeah.
mean, but also if you just petty like me, you just hate seeing other people succeed when your team is not. Feel free. Like I tell you all the time, Jim. Got to be an honest hater, and so sometimes you need like a little bit more hate. When it comes to sports, is always good to me. So if you're a Colts fan, you're like, I just hate Dan Campbell because he might crush my team this week. I kind of feel you on that. You got to hate.
There's some
Gotta
maybe
hate.
like latent jealousy in there of like, hey, we almost had Dan Campbell a couple years ago,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like
that's a little
there's
bit of
some of
it.
that. Obviously things didn't go so well with Frank Reich toward the end, so maybe you could have had Dan Campbell. Would things have been different in Indy? I don't know, but yeah, there's maybe I can get that. I could see that. Though I will say, like you and I both growing up in like Bears country, I have no hate. I have no hate for the Lions and Dan Campbell. I can't find it within myself.
Uh, I
I'm
was gonna
kind of
say
it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch what they're doing.
we can't talk about too much hate in Bears country right now without bringing up the Packers. Like, Lord have mercy. God bless the Bears because I'm just convinced they'll never beat the Packers again as long as I live. So that's just my thought on the matter.
I was watching the Colts game, had the Bears get up on another TV, and I went, here's my reaction. I literally went, oh, can't believe the Bears are about to be the Packers. I didn't see that coming at all. And then the block kick happened, and I was like, yeah, that's about right. That
Yeah,
was it. And
it
then I just
fits.
moved on.
It fits.
I
So
was like, yeah.
getting getting back to the Colts for a little bit, the last thing I'll end with is that this pretty unique stat from NFL Pro. The Colts became the fifth team in the Super Bowl era to have their first 11 games decided by 10 points or fewer. Joined
Huh.
the 2020 Chargers, 2016 Lions, 2015 Ravens, and the 1994 Lions. And so all that to say, the Colts have been in every game this year. They really have. And it's been against good teams. And this I think is a great team. But if you're looking at where the Colts have been, they've played up or down pretty much to their competition this year. So they have a chance. I just think that they have to, one, they have to click early. You can't have a bunch of 3-and-outs or, start off the game behind the 8 ball. You got to go down there and probably score on the first drive, score a touchdown, put some pressure on Detroit to respond, and then go from there. But we'll see, man. And then the thing that I think gives this team hope and this franchise hope is that you want to see what Anthony is made of. And if this is a game where, again, it could go great or poorly, because I know that Detroit is going to have some things dialed up for this kid. But if he comes out and has a great game, then you're like, okay, he's serious. He's for real. This is someone we can kind of, lean on to just go out there. Even if the odds are not in our favor, our quarterback is. And so that could, mean something. So I'm excited to see what, comes next, just because this Colts season never seems to have a shortage of storylines. And so after the redemption arc, Jim, we got to move on to Detroit and what that means. Ooh, Lord.
I think the arc continues. The arc certainly continues, right? Like it's like we talked about. It's one game's great, but you got to keep it going. So we'll see what they do against Detroit. But yeah, I'm glad this isn't. We're not watching a Joe Flacco team headed nowhere anymore. At least this gives us a little more interest to see. Hey, all right, what do we got? Is this going to be it with Anthony Richardson, or is it not going to be? I can't tell you how much more excited it was just going into the game on Sunday, just to be like, okay, like here now we can get back to what really matters, and we did, and it was fun. So I'm excited to watch it again on Sunday against I think the best team in the NFL.
Exactly. So we will probably check in with you all every Tuesday from here on out, barring any breaking news or major injuries, things like that. But beyond that, expect to hear from us at least once a week. Who knows if they sneak into the playoffs? Maybe we give you a playoff version of this, not to get ahead of myself. But excited for what's to come. Obviously, again, you can subscribe, follow, like, share the James Boy Podcast wherever you get your podcast. Just search literally the James Boy Podcast. You'll see my animated face, which again is more handsome than me. I'm looking rough right now, Jim. Got to go get a haircut, this week to make sure I look like my avatar. But in all seriousness, thank you all for listening. Check in with you all soon, and we'll see what happens against the Lions in Week 12.